Good morning. Let's talk about accessibility done right. If I'm shaking, ignore it. I have stage fright. I'm getting over it. So as Code Rabbi said, learn the most by sharing your knowledge with others. So that's what I plan to do today. Whee! As you just heard, I'm Michelle Sanver, and here's me petting a dragon. I'm co-president of PHP Women, and as you may have seen, we sell elephants here at the conference for £15 or $30 if you're American. Sold out, but you can go to shop.phpwomen.org and buy your elephant. So if you're wondering about my accents, I'm Swedish and Danish, lived in Netherlands for 6 years, and now live in Switzerland working for this awesome company called Leap. I'm actually a back-end developer. I work mostly with data. And there's a lot more to accessibility than I can possibly cover in 1 hour or 50 hours. So I know that you're tired. It's after lunch, or you're all awake. Anyone awake? Yay! But let's do an after lunch story anyway. I've always been really, really passionate about a lot of things. But accessibility, who cares? It was one of those things I just didn't think of until I met Aaron. Aaron, he's amazing. He's a blind programmer. And he's shown me some of the things that he does, how he programs while being blind. No one ever knows the code better than he does. And he also knows a lot about accessibility. So he started showing me stuff. And he also said that he had a bug, or he thought he had a bug because there was a little piece of dust on his braille display. Yeah, that never happened to me. He really, really, really knows how to use a screen reader in speed that you can't even understand. He will speak like, I don't. I have no clue how to use a screen reader. Okay, I know how they work. Okay, confession time. This talk is not how I planned it. I planned to be up here with a screen reader, show you how to work, just like Aaron did. He's amazing, and he blew my mind. I wanted to do that. But I'm not Aaron. And this talk is not about people with disabilities. It's not about blind and deaf people. It's not about people with cognitive disabilities. It's not about men who are colorblind, people with motor disabilities. This talk is about people. People who are using the web. People who are using what you are building. Because after all, what qualifies good code? Code written with the user in mind. Code for the people. But let's look at some assistive technology. We have screen readers, which I just talked about. We have text-to-speech. We have screen magnifiers. We have joysticks. You can use them for more than just flight simulators. We have keyboards. We have mobile devices. So, what other assistive technology do we have? A mouse, maybe? Let me tell you a secret. All technology is assistive technology. We can't build websites and test it against assistive technology. It's impossible. How do we do that? Yeah. So let's not do that. But what if accessibility online was like accessibility in real life? This is a ramp. It's an awesome ramp. What can you use it for? Wheelchair users can use it. Anyone can use it. Parents with strollers, Me with my heavy shopping on wheels. It's amazing. Some other accessibility user experiences hotel layouts. I had a story just 2 weeks ago. At Sunshine PHP, something really awkward happened. It involved a lot of beer. But I lost my glasses. And without my glasses, I can't find anything. I was told that in the morning, I would go down to the reception and I would find them. So I tried to find the elevator, which I managed to. Then in the elevator, I had to press the button that went to the lobby. It's not so hard. It's a big button. It has different circle from the other button. So it's really, really cool. Good accessibility, good usability. Here, though, I really hope I don't lose my glasses. Here, to get to my hotel room, I first press a button, take the elevator to the first floor. Then I cross a bridge. I take another elevator, go to another floor. Then I go across it. Crazy. It's not accessible. So, accessibility is about universal design that you can use for anything, such as the ramp that we saw. It's actually invented by Ron Mace. Universal design is the design of products and environments to be usable by all people to the greatest extent possible, without the need for adaptation or specialized design. Without the need for adaptation or specialized design. That's how a website should be. No special things, no adaptation, no bullshit. Ron Mace was an architect, and these were the things he saw as universal design. We can implement it in a website too. Just following some guidelines and simple rules I will show you right now. First of all, keep your JavaScript on. Don't turn it off, ever. There's no reason to. We live in 2015. Remember that all functionality should work for all people, for all technology. All people. Nice. So now we suddenly don't have this list of people with disabilities, and it makes things a lot easier to deal with. We simply have guidelines. So one of the things that's important is to use consistent language. If you don't, people may get confused. People who don't know the language very well, people with learning disabilities, use consistent language. Write out acronyms, at least the first time that you use them. It's pretty straightforward. Be clear and concise. Now, I had built a website that I thought was really, really accessible. I had read everywhere about how cool it would be, and then I had Aaron try it out. And he didn't use my accessibility features. He just, semantics is good. So he started browsing my website with headers. My headers weren't quite so good, but apparently screen reader users use them a lot. A lot. They use them to navigate your content. So make sure that your headers are logical. So when your H3 just looks better than H2, and you just kind of have that one instead for design, don't ever do that. Someone with a screen reader will be looking for the H2 and be completely confused. That sucks. So design it correctly and think about the semantics before you think of how it looks. Also important for readability is easy-to-use sans serif fonts. Size 12 or more. Keep your headers relative in order, please. For instance, size 14, 16, and 18. And this is probably pretty straightforward, but I've seen a lot of people not doing this. Keep a high contrast between background and font color. Give your links unique and descriptive names. Imagine there was no other text around it, except the title of the page. Would you know what the link says? If so, perfect. If not, don't expect others to do so. I think in 2015, I don't have to say this, so I'm just going to skip this slide. For complex tables, provide a summary. A summary is incredibly important for people with learning disabilities. Now let's look at forms. Forms is one of the trickiest things in accessibility. When form fields are not labeled properly, the screen reader has no clue what it does. It's a form, what should I write here? I have no idea. So it may be impossible to tell what content to enter in your field. That sucks, that's not accessible at all. Forms should be tabbable, in lack of a better English word. In visual order, if it jumps from tab to tab, it's really confusing. Use field sets for related fields. For instance, if you have full name and date of birth, it may be personal information. Great. And don't use only asterisks for required fields. Why? Because some screen readers may ignore it. So here's when aria labels comes in. Use them in addition to asterisks. Aria required true if it's a required field, and aria required false if it's not. After submitting, include the errors in the page title. That works really well, I think. CAPTCHA is bad, okay? It should not be used to validate submissions for accessibility. I know there are accessible CAPTCHAs, but actually they're pretty useless. Aaron told me he struggles with them a lot. So here's a link. You can download my slides later and look at spam-free accessible forms without CAPTCHAs. Yes, they do exist. Now let's talk about colors. As you can probably tell, I love colors. And to make colors accessible, well, there's some tricks. But often we want to use colors to leave a message. So red-green color deficiency is quite common. 8% of the people have it. But we also have learning disabilities. And if you color code things, then the person with color blindness can't get it. But if you don't color code things, the person with learning disabilities may not get it, because if you color code it, it's much clearer. Solution? Satisfy both groups. Use colors and visual indicators, such as a question mark or whatever. Now, there are tools to help with this that I will show you in a bit. Now for audio and video, make sure you always have an alternative text version. For video, use captions. For audio, include a text transcript. Also for non-auditory learners. If filling material for an already described article, don't add an alternative. You don't need it. Because, yeah. Do not autoplay ever, 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 ever. Okay, thanks. And anything longer than 3 seconds should have pause and play. Yeah, make sure you can pause and play, please. Avoid flashes or very fast changes or animations. Actually, anything that flashes 3 times in 1 second can cause epileptic reactions. I think that's nothing you really want on your site. Which is really a shame because there's some GIFs I really like to include. As I'm sure you're aware of, when you include images, you also need to include alternate or alt text. But what I often see is you have this gallery of images, and the alt text of every image is gallery image 1, gallery image 2, gallery image 3. It should be different, right? So gallery image 55. How much am I learning from that? Describe the image. Describe what you're trying to convey with the image. Because, let's say we have a red panda. Don't say it's a red panda. Say what it's trying to do. A biology class is completely different from an English class when there's a picture of a red panda. So alt text can be replaced with a caption. If you caption the image, just don't have any alt text. You can leave it blank. Perfect. You can also leave it blank for decorative images. Probably leave it blank for those cool GIFs you have. This goes without saying, high contrast is important, especially for figures, such as graphs. But for graphs, include a table if possible. If you have these nice graphs, also include a text version. Table is really, really preferable, because anyone can just tab through the data easily, and I love it. Please, 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 please avoid images of text. I hate them. So, aria is what we often use for accessibility. It means accessible, rich internet applications. It's easy and it's powerful. And it means you can actually structure your weird websites. Your modern websites can be accessible because of aria. It's amazing. So aria has roles. Roles tell the screen reader what an element does, such as your fancy button, which is actually a div. But with roles, you can tell it it's a button. So all technology that supports it will know that it's a button. Awesome. In aria, there's also states and properties. They tell the screen reader something more. For example, they can say if a field is required or invalid. They can tell whether a button opens a pop-up or submenu, or if something has autocomplete, if a checkbox is checked or not. It's really, really useful. I love it. Roles of navigation and menu is a good example. Landmarks of banner and main content is another good example of aria. Alerts of live and automatic. Now we start getting to something interesting. And forms, as we saw earlier, also allows aria. And we can use things as described by or labeled by. It's really useful. Now, most modern websites has dynamic content. I would say all modern websites. Nah, most. So slideshows is something I see all the time. And in 90% they're not accessible at all. So make sure that each photo has alt text and that it can be navigated with the keyboard. That's really all you have to think about in a slideshow. Alt text, navigate via the keyboard. Cool, it's accessible. Also, of course, think of contrasts and things like that. Please know how to play. So live regions are something really amazing with aria. For example, it can be used to tell the screen reader information such as autocomplete results are available. Yay! Your message has been sent successfully. Status information that is good for the user. And, you know, this is something new in accessibility, and it really means a lot that we can do this. This means that we can keep JavaScript on. Finally. So, live regions can either be polite or assertive. I would say keep them polite. And making them assertive means that they interrupt the flow of the screen reader, which is really, really annoying if you're trying to find something and suddenly it says, oh, new message on Twitter. And you're like, ah! So just wait till the screen reader is finished and then say, okay, now you can look at the messages on Twitter. Unless something is exploding, of course. Yay! JavaScript can be on. So throw away that Node.js plugin that you have to test accessibility. Not needed at all, ever. Actually, Twitter is amazing for accessibility. If you want to see an example of a website that does things right, look at Twitter. They have a dedicated accessibility team. And they do it really, really well. So there's tweet fields. There's tons of information. First, you can focus on the tweet text edit field, and then we'll focus on forms. It's really cool. And it tells the screen reader when you do @nickname, it tells them there's a list, and you can go through the list. And it does that with this syntax. Now, let's first look. Okay. So, area labeled by tweetbox. Whoa! Okay, that's not. Okay. Work with me here, thank you. So, area labeled by tweetbox mini home profile page, profile label. This means that the screen reader will see this area labeled by this label. And it has a role as a text box. So we will know that we can write things in here. And we will also know that it's multi-line, because we have aria multi-line true. Perfect. We'll see that it has autocomplete with this aria autocomplete. we will see that we can't expand it. It's 140 characters. Why would we do that? Okay, you're falling asleep. I'm sorry. So here's online assessment tools. Wave is amazing. It's online web accessible evaluation tool. And it's a Firefox plugin. The Firefox plugin works really well. I wish there was a plugin for other browsers too. The online tools allows you to give it a web page address, such as Twitter, and then it gives you warnings. It tells you, okay, you have maybe 50 aria labels. And it tells you if you have images with alt text that are the same as other images, it's probably an indicator that something's wrong. It gives you cool errors. So I use this one a lot. There's also the color filter. Sorry. Color filter is really cool. It actually simulates what a web page looks like to people with different types of color blindness. So play with this and you will see if this high contrast thing, if it's actually working out for you. It's quite difficult sometimes. Like this purple and white looks pretty cool, but yeah, I guess it will work. This check is another cool thing. It allows you to upload an image or a web address to simulate color blindness for that image. There's also color contrast checker. Yes, you notice that there's a lot of color tools. I use them a lot because I like colorful design. So here you can check the contrast ratio between your text and background of color on the web page. There's a lot more. So for more, go to V3C Web Accessibility Tools list and have a look, use them, experiment. It's really cool. So accessibility is not about assistive technology. Accessibility is about people. It's about universal design, following guidelines. Accessibility means no workarounds whatsoever. So keep your JavaScript on. Please, 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 please. Follow guidelines. And if you have a modern website, use aria. It's actually pretty straightforward and really almost too easy. And remember to ask questions. So, questions?
Thank you for that. It's a really helpful overview. If I'm going back to look at a website I've worked on and thinking, right, I ought to make it accessible, what's the first thing I should do?
The first thing you should do for a website that already exists. Okay. So in normal cases, I would suggest think about accessibility from the start. But I had this project as well, a huge project that has been going on for 2 years. And then suddenly Aaron starts testing things on it, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. So the first things you should do is look what bottlenecks you have on the website. What things are maybe confusing. Look at your semantics. Is something out of the ordinary? If you have HTML5, is everything properly labeled? Chances are it's accessible already. But if you have dynamic content, maybe start looking at these aria labels and adding it for auto-loading and all that stuff. That's where I would start with the dynamic content and the images and the contrasts on the page.
Hi. So, are there any kind of statistics on how many users of kind of screen readers actually have screen readers that are compatible with aria, because when you're looking at something like JAWS, which is $1,000 to purchase, you get stuck on a version unless you're spending £1,000 every release. So do we know how many users are actually using modern screen readers that implement this standard?
So we don't really, I haven't seen statistics for it, but I know because Aaron said that basically all screen readers support it. So I guess all screen readers should support aria. It's quite an old technology.
Can I just add, is there any screen readers people can turn to test the effect of their work without having to, shell out?
So what you can do you can use these tools I showed, but you can also use screen reader on your Mac, for instance. You can use VoiceOver. So VoiceOver works really, really well to test aria labels. So a good example is if you go to Twitter. I was going to do this, but I was afraid of the Wi-Fi connection. But if you go to Twitter, and you turn on VoiceOver, and then you can see all these things. If you type @ you get a list, and then it speaks to you, just like a screen reader would. It's really cool.
Hello. We had a project where we converted stuff to be accessible. We had real troubles with the compatibility of the readers with aria. It felt basically like web browsers of late 90s, where stuff is not consistently working or at all, and basically we were not able to do this, no workarounds. In some cases we had to do some special stuff for, let's say, NVIDIA or VoiceOver or whatever. So how should we approach it? Should we just go through the specification and hope that the readers would basically catch up eventually, or?
Okay, so I guess it's a lot like ignoring Internet Explorer 7 because it's too old. Eventually you can't support everything but what you can make sure to do is that all really important content on the website is accessible without aria labels. So if it's something really, really important, like a government website, you probably want to make sure that it works even on old technology. But like a modern website like Twitter, I guess I wouldn't care about those users, even if it sounds a bit mean. I would.
Anybody else? No? Okay. Thank you very much, Michelle. Cheers.